June 2nd, 1944. 23:40 hours. Countryside outside Dover, England. Private Arthur Shilston crouched in wet grass, unrolling what looked like a collapsed circus tent. 4 days before D-Day, in near-total darkness, the 23-year-old art student from New York inflated a 30-ton Sherman tank using a bicycle pump. It took him 14 minutes. The rubber hissed as air filled the frame. What emerged in the moonlight was a perfect silhouette: turret, tracks, barrel, everything a German reconnaissance plane would photograph from 10,000 feet. Everything except weight, armor, and the ability to fire a single round. Shilston stepped back, admiring his work. 20 yards away, his unit was inflating 11 more. By dawn, an entire armored division would materialize in this field. By the following night, they'd vanish, reappearing 60 miles north. They called themselves the Ghost Army. January 1944. The Allied invasion of Europe was 6 months away, but German intelligence was watching. Every troop movement, every supply depot, every tank division, all scrutinized by Luftwaffe reconnaissance flights and Wehrmacht spies embedded across England. Allies faced a mathematical problem. They needed the Germans to believe the invasion would strike Pas-de-Calais, the narrowest point of the English Channel. They needed Hitler to keep 2 divisions stationed 200 miles from the actual landing beaches of Normandy. They needed to stage the largest military deception in history. They needed an army that didn't exist. Enter the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. 1,100 men. Average age, 24. Recruited not from infantry divisions or artillery battalions, but from art schools, advertising agencies, and Broadway theaters. Their arsenal: inflatable rubber, sound effects libraries, time equals 3 milliseconds / greater than, radio scripts, and theatrical paint. Their mission: convince the Third Reich they were the first army group, 150,000 troops poised to invade at Calais. The equipment arrived at Camp Forest, Tennessee, in wooden crates marked Special Effects Unit. Inside, 600 inflatable tanks, artillery pieces, jeeps, and half-tracks. Each weighed less than 100 pounds. A 4-man team could carry a Sherman tank across a field, inflate it in 15 minutes, and secure it with tent stakes. Lieutenant Frederick Fox, former window designer for Lord & Taylor, supervised construction. The inflatables needed to satisfy aerial photography: crisp shadows, proper dimensions, convincing weathering. Fox's team added painted details: mud splatter, scuff marks, fake serial numbers. They positioned tanks at precise angles, ensuring tracks left appropriate impressions in soil. But visual deception was only the first layer. The Sonic Deception Unit, led by sound engineer Lieutenant Harold Dahl, carried something more elaborate: the largest mobile sound system in the world. Weighing 500 pounds, these speakers could project recorded sounds 15 miles. Dahl's library included tank formations moving at night. Time equals 3 milliseconds / bridge - building operations, supply convoy traffic. At 0200 hours, German listening posts would hear armored divisions repositioning. By dawn, the tanks would be gone, the sounds now emanating from a location 20 miles distant. The radio deception unit completed the illusion. Operators transmitted fake communications between fictitious commanders, discussing supply problems, weather delays, troop morale. They mimicked the distinctive fist, the unique rhythm of individual radio operators, ensuring German signals intelligence would track the same units day after day. Each layer reinforced the others. Visual evidence supported radio traffic. Radio traffic explained sounds. Sounds justified visual deployments. Operation Fortitude South began in earnest, April 1944. The Ghost Army established a phantom headquarters in Dover, General George Patton's First Army Group. Patton, whom the Germans considered America's most aggressive commander, was the perfect figurehead for this fictional force. The deception teams worked in rotation. Monday night: Inflate 2 tank battalions outside Folkestone. Tuesday. Dismantle, transport 60 miles, reassemble before dawn. Wednesday. Radio operators broadcast supply requisitions for non-existent divisions. Thursday. Sound trucks play recordings of bridge construction while engineers build nothing. The theatre students brought unexpected expertise. They understood blocking, sight lines, audience perspective. When inflating tanks near towns, they positioned them to be visible from roads, but inaccessible enough to prevent close inspection. Local residents saw impressive military build-ups. German spies, posing as civilians, reported exactly what the Allies wanted them to see. One unit specialized in what they called special effects. They created fake laundry hanging behind field hospitals, suggesting large medical staffs. They painted unit insignias on buildings. They even hired local carpenters to construct wooden landing crafts moored in harbors, visible from German reconnaissance aircraft, but requiring none of the steel, engines, or manpower of actual invasion vessels. Sergeant Bill Blass, who would later become a fashion designer, oversaw uniform details. Ghost Army soldiers wore patches from fictitious divisions. They frequented local pubs, casually mentioning their units, dropping hints about training exercises. The psychological operations team ensured every interaction, every careless comment overheard in a pub, reinforced the illusion of massive forces preparing to strike Calais. June 6, 1944. As real soldiers stormed Normandy beaches, the Ghost Army maintained their performance in southeastern England. German reconnaissance flights photographed the same tank formations, now suggesting Normandy was a feint, that the real invasion, the larger invasion, still threatened Calais. Hitler believed it. He kept the 15th Army, 19 divisions, 150,000 troops, defending Pas-de-Calais for 7 weeks after D-Day. Those divisions never reinforced Normandy, never engaged Allied forces breaking out from the beachheads, never deployed during the critical first month when the invasion's success hung by narrow margins. The Ghost Army's inflatable tanks kept German panzers stationed 200 miles from the actual fighting. After Normandy was secured, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops deployed to France. Their mission evolved. Now they created phantom divisions to draw German attention away from actual Allied movements. Before the Rhine crossing, they staged elaborate build-ups in southern sectors, while the real assault prepared further north. Before major offensives, they simulated preparations miles from actual attack points. Between June 1944 and March 1945, the Ghost Army conducted 20 major deceptions across France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. They impersonated 14 different divisions. They simulated army groups of 30,000 troops, using 1,100 men and rubber props. German intelligence consistently positioned forces based on Ghost Army illusions. The war ended May 8, 1945. The Ghost Army was classified top secret. Members were forbidden from discussing their service. For 40 years, families of these veterans believed their sons had served in administrative roles, quiet, unglamorous positions far from combat. The inflatable tanks were destroyed or repurposed as agricultural equipment. The sound recordings were archived and forgotten. The radio scripts were shredded. The after-action reports remained classified until 1985. When declassification finally occurred, military historians reassessed wartime deceptions. The Ghost Army's operations had fooled German intelligence 20 out of 20 times. Their sonic deceptions had drawn artillery fire to empty fields, revealing German gun positions without risking actual troops. Their visual illusions had caused Hitler to misallocate forces during every major Allied offensive of 1944 to 1945. Eisenhower's post-war assessment was brief. The operations of the 23rd were invaluable. Arthur Shilston, the private who inflated tanks outside Dover, returned to America and became a celebrated illustrator. Bill Blass built a fashion empire. Ellsworth Kelly became a renowned abstract painter. The Ghost Army included dozens of artists who would define American visual culture for the next 50 years. They rarely spoke about the war. When they did, they emphasized the peculiarity, the absurdity of artists fighting with paintbrushes and bicycle pumps instead of rifles. But they had fought. Their weapons were different. Their battlefield was perception rather than terrain. Their enemy was certainty rather than soldiers. They had convinced the Third Reich to prepare for an invasion that would never come, in a location that would never be attacked, by an army that existed only as rubber, recordings, and radio scripts. 10,000 fake tanks, 1,400 men, 20 successful deceptions, the greatest military illusion in history, performed by theatre students and Plywood.